So to start off, I want to give this game the benefit of the doubt because I enjoyed this game the first time I played it, and just the fact that it's an open world game with 4-player co-op is always fun. I firmly believe every open world game should have co-op in it of some kind, and I think any open world game that doesn't have co-op is really missing out on a good demographic there because there's just not enough.
That's literally the only reason that I still play the Far Cry games.
Yeah, and even then, they only started doing that on 4?
On 4, yeah.
There's like kind of a co-op thing in 3, but it's not the open world. It's like missions.
But Dying Light in general is just, it's an incredible game for playing with friends. There's so much room for differentiation in your encounters. It's the same set of zombies. None of the zombies are anything out of what we're used to, but when you have these super tough zombies that can beat the shit out of you, and your best option is just to run from them, you end up with it's good times. You have a lot of good times playing this game. And just in terms of a general, like, have fun, do what you want game, it's incredible. You could easily get 40, 50 hours out of it just playing with a group of friends.
Yeah, it's made by Techland, who did Dead Island. So if you like Dead Island, the combat is really, really similar. I don't personally like it all that much. It's kind of clunky melee to me. I can see why people enjoy it, especially things like having a knife that slow-mo slices a zombie's head off is satisfying. The music overall is a little bit forgettable, but it's got a good, strong main theme that if I were to hear the main theme with no other context, I would recognize it as, oh, that's the Dying Light theme, because it's got the really strong notes to it. I don't think anybody would just know it in their head, but when you hear it, it's like, oh, I recognize that for sure. The company has been updating this game consistently for the last 6 years. This game came out in 2015, and it's still getting updates. I'm pretty sure they just put out an update for the 4th of July. It is currently July 24th as we're recording this, so that was just this month.
Which is pretty good. This whole trend of keeping games alive didn't really become a strong thing until, maybe 2018? They kind of decided, hey, let's keep everything going, like, hey, why not?
Yeah, I don't want to, give Siege all the credit or something, but I think Siege was sort of the one that sort of spearheaded that, hey, even if our game doesn't start strong, if we keep supporting it, players will keep coming back. But this one was before that. I mean, it came out the same year as Siege, so obviously, whatever. But they've been putting updates out to this. I haven't played the DLC, but I've heard the DLC story is better. This is where we'll start getting into the negative things.
So yeah, you start off with this game. It has an incredible number of things that you can do. It's so good to play with friends. It's just really, you can curb stomp a zombie 50 times into the ground, just telling him he came to the wrong neighborhood. And then you play the story.
So the story begins, and you can't play with your friends for 40 minutes minimum, because we were going pretty fast. I was rushing through the beginning. It took you a little over an hour, I think, which is just ridiculous. That's an insane amount of time before you can actually play with your friends. So if you were getting 3 other friends together to do that, that would really turn a lot of people off. And having to wait for a new friend if you've played them before is ridiculous.
But the entire concept that you can go in with, if you're not the same level, I played with Will on my character who was half a mission behind him, only because I didn't complete one objective. And I realized after about probably 3 hours of playing that my character wasn't leveling at all. So I was wondering why I was so weak. So if you aren't ahead of the player who's the main player, you don't even level. So you just sit there being useless. You don't get any cool abilities.
And then you get the stuff on the flip side. If your friend who is a much higher level than you joins your game, they get to keep all their stuff. So it didn't really matter because we just wanted to get through it. But like Austin came in with his much higher leveled character
Grappling
with like
hook.
all kinds, grappling hook and all kinds of special melee weapons. And that just completely throws the balancing of the game out the window. The story, complete garbage. It's so generic and the main character is so forgettable. I make a joke in the completely accurate summary that I had to look up his name for the script because I legitimately forgot it. His name is Kyle Crane, which is like the most generic white guy name you could think of. And man, I don't know what they were thinking. And the funny thing is, as I was going back through the footage, I was thinking there's a lot of decisions in this game that if there were consequences for making or not making those decisions, that would have made it a stronger idea. And that's what they're going with for Dying Light 2, is strong decisions that actually affect the game world, which I'm interested to see. Because I don't normally like that kind of thing, but if you're going to throw it out there as like it's a possibility and then it's not, that's weaker than actually having it as a possibility. That'll be interesting to see. In terms of the visuals, the game's aged fine. People's faces look really creepy, but a lot of games from the mid 2010s were that way.
You'd never play this at this point and be like, ooh, the textures of the landscape looks so bad. Not still a pretty decent looking game.
It's got enough color to it that it doesn't feel like super washed out like a lot of brown shooters. Brown being the aesthetic.
Which is surprising for something that's such a sad destruction Middle East zombie shooter game. Melee shooter.
And this is a survival game very, very heavily influenced by Far Cry 3. And it very clearly wants to be Far Cry 3 with the way that it does its villain.
And then it does this whole annoying crafting system that's a lot worse.
Yeah, I am not a fan of crafting systems. I am also really not a fan of putting gameplay mechanics behind player choice upgrades, because you end up with the problem that there are certain upgrades that the player may never get in their playthrough of the campaign. So you have to water down how the campaign is structured, because you have to make it clear that somebody without any of the abilities could get through it. So I was struggling through areas where Austin was able to just use a grappling hook and get through, because it wasn't at all balanced for a grappling hook. It was balanced for somebody who didn't have one.
And you're in a game where it's all randomized loot. So let's say you get the perks to become incredibly good with hammers, other heavy weapons, and now all you're finding are knives and swords. You're a little bit crippled for a while because you don't find good weapons that often. You find weapons, just not good ones.
I much prefer how like Doom Eternal does theirs, where they will give you all of the mechanics that you need as you progress, and then you can make them stronger or get a couple of other weapon abilities, but you have all of your baseline abilities by default. And I think that would have been much better for Dying Light, because there are a lot of really good abilities that I didn't have until basically the end of the game. The grappling hook being the most important one, but there's tons of things related to how you can deal with a zombie, like being able to tackle zombies, being able to jump on their heads, being able to stun them, those kinds of things. You don't start with those. You have to choose to get them. And then there's a ton of useless abilities, like, oh, now you can craft elemental throwing stars. It's like, I don't give a shit. I just have to buy this ability because I need to get my upgrade tree further down. I'm never going to use throwing stars. I hate that kind of thing. And I hate looting. I don't like spending most of my game looking down at the ground grabbing items. And I know they're going for realism or whatever, but I think I've talked about this before. I hate realism in games, because the more realistic you make a mechanic, the more it suffers from being an actual good game mechanic. So the fact that they have to open up bins and grab each item individually is really slow and really tedious, and it's so frustrating to have to go through that process every time. And it's like, oh, if you take damage, you have to have a medkit on you, which you have to craft from all these other crafting materials. So if you don't have a medkit, there is no other way to heal. So you don't get healing from killing enemies, you don't get healing over time, you will just die.
I wish they had more of, if you just hold, the interact button on one of the dropped items or something, like for weapons, it makes sense to individually pick them up. But like all this random crap, like, hey, a bar of food, hey, a piece of duct tape, hey, a wire, hey, like just all this random crap. Just let me hold E and just get everything within like a 10-foot radius.
One of the things I always hear people praise about this game is, oh, there are guns, but you won't want to use them because it'll cause the zombie horde to come at you.
No, you use the guns. You use them all the time.
You use the guns so much, and they give you so much ammo. I had always thought, like, oh, it's, you don't use the guns much because they're powerful, but there's ammo scarcity. We were constantly full on ammo, especially if you're just playing through the campaign. And they expect you, there's like 3 full fighting segments where you just have to fight guys, and it sucks because they'll kill you in like 3 shots. So you have to go through this super fucking precise aiming with these guys that jitter around so you can't just shoot them in the head. It's such a pain.
These are guys who are powerful enough where it's like 8 to 10 power hits with one melee weapon to kill them. Or 1 headshot.
Yeah, fighting humans sucks. I don't like the way that fighting zombies works, but it's got a clear way of dealing with zombies after a while, but fighting humans is just a complete mess.
Humans will just go into a completely invulnerable mode where they'll just hold up their weapon and you have to kick them or something, and it's just really annoying.
I never quite figured it out. Yeah, I guess this is pretty much just how every game was in the mid-2010s, but all the female characters in this game look like beauty models in the middle of an apocalypse, which is hilarious because all the guys are covered in dirt and grime and like unshaven and whatever. But then the girls have on like full makeup and like minimal dirt, which I think is hilarious.
Even after being kidnapped. Like if you get kidnapped and manage to maintain, like makeup's not easy, dude. Like if you can maintain not smudging any of it, props to you. Okay.
And then I think I mentioned this already. They really, really want the bad guy to be Voss, but he's just not as cool because he just seems like. Well, so he was a politician. I think he was like the mayor of Haran or something that just went crazy. And so he just seems like he was a guy who was used to having power and just had power when he decided to go crazy and is abusing that power, rather than a character like Voss, who is a pirate, who at the very beginning of the game establishes, like, I think he kills your brother or your best friend or something like that. So they establish, like, you have a reason to fear him and you're just like some college frat boy. So he's this pirate that just owns this island. And so he's like a scary character, but I don't know why Rise is supposed to be scary outside of he just keeps killing his minions, which is weird. It's just the bad guy thing to do.
Is it bad that the only reason that I have any memory of the name of Haran is the merchant going, I got the best deals in all of Haran?
Yeah, it's definitely just generic Middle Eastern country. I also think it's funny. I don't think it was intentional, but this ends up as almost one of those white savior storylines, because we're a white guy who ends up going to this Middle Eastern country and then decides to save all of the Middle Eastern people who live there because of our big heart. It's like, okay. It's a little weird. And then, like, I don't know why the GRE sent in Kyle Crane when he's clearly not up for the task.
Give him body armor or something. Like, please.
That was hilarious. Yeah, he gets bit within, like, the first minute of being there. It's like, and it's through a sleeve, number one, so it's like he's wearing sleeves, but whatever.
Well, like they had to have sent someone into a zombie infested area before, right?
And they knew it was a zombie infestation, which is ridiculous.
The ending?
Yeah, oh my god, the ending was so fucking bad.
We're having a great old time, we're like, okay, we're just about done. This ending, we have this weird ass arena stuff. Okay, so now, let's go in for the final progression. We'll do this. We've been working as a team this whole time. And then it's like, you have to do this solo. And I'm like, hold up a sec, what?
Yeah, the last half hour of the game is completely solo. I also checked the time for how long that I unlocked the grappling hook. It was less than 40 minutes, and then when you get to the ending, you're not allowed to use the grappling hook at any point during the ending sequence, which was fucking awful.
So you got to use it, 3 times?
Yeah, it was barely at all. I don't think I even had a full mission with it.
That's terrible.
It was just the worst. Then there was the going to the Dr. Camden's research lab. Getting through that labyrinth of a fucking lab took us 15 minutes. It was awful. It's super arbitrary. And they introduced new mechanics like pressing a button on a forklift to move things, which we accidentally stumbled upon. I'm interested in trying the DLC to see how much different it is. I've heard it's better, and I know that it's got vehicles and things, which sound like an interesting addition.
Yeah, it has vehicles. I've heard the driving's decent.
So if people want to see us do the DLC, I'd be down for that. Hopefully for the DLC, we could actually get 4 people. I'm skeptical at best for the quality of Dying Light 2, because Dead Island was not a great series, and this game is like 30% good and like 70% crap. So if they pull a Doom Eternal and Dying Light 2 fixes all of the issues with the first game, which it seems to be doing some of it, like the story is a big one. If they can manage to pull that off, I think it'll be a good game, but I think because it's still survival genre, it's going to have a lot of the crafting elements and stuff like that, and I'm not going to enjoy it. At the minimum, I would say I really hope they don't go with the same ability upgrade system that they did in this game. They really need to award the player the upgrades as the game progresses so that they can introduce more complex game mechanics and have it be more satisfying as you play and not just easier.
There's a lot of room you have to work with, and I'm hoping that Dying Light 2 is good. I hope it's not, like some other games where Dying Light was successful in spite of their development by mimicking Far Cry 3. I'm really hoping that it is high quality because I want another game to play with friends like this. It's honestly awesome to go and clear the big zones of the infected and stuff, clear out some of the high loot areas, just getting cool shit. Like, it's fun.
Also, this is just a nitpick, but I hate when a zombie gets too close to you, it just grabs you and you have to mash E to get out of it.
Oh, but Will, you didn't get the upgrade to get out of the thing automatically?
I did eventually, but the funny thing is when you get the instant upgrade, it is a button choice. So you choose either to mash out of it or press the button to instantly escape instead of it just doing it automatically, which just seems weird to me.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I never bought it.
Yeah, it was weird. I hate QuickTime events, and this game is full of them. And for some reason, the final fucking boss is a QTE sequence. And it was so abrupt that I had gotten to that cutscene and was expecting to just chill. So I put my arms up off my keyboard to stretch and then instantly died. It was like, whoa!
And that's how the game ends.
It's awful. I've probably complained about this before in Real Thoughts, but just in case. QuickTime events are the laziest form of player engagement because you are not actually engaged with the game. They are giving you an arbitrary button prompt to make sure that you're paying attention. If you were actually engaged with the game, they would give you full player control. I don't think a boss fight would be good against the bad guy because they had the boss fight with his minion and that one sucked. And then fighting any of the big zombies as a boss fight were awful. But they could have done something. I don't know what. It could have, if they wanted to continue with Far Cry 3, they could have had some kind of drug sequence. You know, we run out of Antizin again or some shit and have to fight him as he's teleporting around in our drugged up mind. Who, I don't care. But something, anything.
Well, they could have implemented the idea of having the Antizin running up. We were out of Antizin like the entire game, dude. And we just had random half seizures in our eyeballs every once in a while. And they did not implement that into the story in any intelligent way. You know, like obviously you fall unconscious at one point, but like there is no intelligent use of that.
Getting a seizure was really annoying because it would slow you down, you'd go through an animation, and then you'd have to wait for it to finish because it would take up all of your stamina. And the sequence where you pass out, you're supposed to head back to the tower. And I don't know if it's a timed thing or if it's a distance thing, but we went almost all the way back to the tower before we passed out. And we were not allowed to sprint. So we were doing parkour while not being allowed to sprint, and it was so stupidly slow.
Yep. And any Halo fans here who haven't played Dying Light yet, you know, in Halo 3, when you're going in those tunnels and Cortana starts talking to you.
It's exactly like that.
It's about that. And you sit there like, no, let me move.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, it's fun.
The cutscenes do the weird thing where they want to keep it in first person, but they want to have it slightly cinematic, so you're like constantly zooming into things, which is always funny to me because do I just have adjustable eyeballs? Like, how the fuck does this work?
I used to see like that when I wore glasses.
Did you?
No, that's not how people see. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I would love binocular eyes. They'd be very helpful for totally normal reasons.
No, glasses, that was NCIS.
Zoom and enhance, yeah.
I don't think anybody would ever play this game just to rush through the story, because the story's kind of like meant to be complimentary. I enjoy parkour kind of stuff, and I think it has a lot of promise as far as being something fun to play with a group of friends.
Yeah, having friends always brings a game up. I would say, in terms of its overall experience, and including being able to play with friends, it's above average, but it's also got the parkour elements, which are fine. They're a little janky because it's an open world game, so it's not curated like the first Mirror's Edge, where you can, if you're good at it, you can just speed through the levels. There's a lot of really slow animations of climbing up things or really janky jumps to like grab onto ledges and things like that. But it's a step above not having those sort of mechanics and just like jumping at a waist-high wall and not being able to go over it. But I wouldn't give it anything higher than that because it's got a lot of annoying mechanics that I think bring it down for me. I definitely would have been very frustrated playing this game alone.
Yeah, I don't know how far you would have made it.
I definitely recommend, if you're going to play this game, just do it at your own pace, do some of the side missions that seem interesting, and get the abilities early. Don't bother with the story.
And there are a lot of good random events that happen. There are all these little random events that will happen that will get you extra XP, so you're not lagging behind. Obviously, when you're playing it like we did, where we rushed through the story, we're avoiding all those. You know, we're not getting extra money, we're not getting extra XP, extra high tier loot. When you do that way, you're missing out on a lot of the experience, unfortunately.
On paper, having to wait for everybody to get around an objective to play the cutscene makes sense because you don't want people to miss the stuff going on. But in practice, it's super fucking annoying.
It's terrible.
Because I would have to wait for you constantly.
Yep, because I want to play the game like a fun game, so I sit there going off on the side.
Yeah, like there was times where I would wait 2 or 3 minutes for Austin to show up for something, or there was a time I had to climb up a tower, but then I had to fast travel back down, and then I had to climb up the tower again, and then I accidentally didn't realize the objective wasn't done, so I had to go back down the tower again, and then climb it up a fucking third time, and then the tower was like, oh, just kidding, there's no actual objective here, you gotta go to another tower, and I was like, fuck you. Oh my god. There were several times in this game that I was very fed up with the gameplay. There was a time where we're going to the second open world area where there's this guide that will only walk when you're walking behind him, and he walks slower than your walking speed, so you're constantly just like inching your way forwards as he walks, and it's like a 50-foot distance. But it feels like for fucking ever, because he's slow as shit. Oh my god. And then the last 30 minutes, there was this one stretch that was me fucking up some of it, but mostly just bad parkour. And they throw a bunch of volatiles at you that make it really annoying. And there were times when I'd get knocked by one, which would knock out my stamina and cause me to fuck up a jump, which was really fucking annoying. And I only finished it by sheer luck.
Yep.
It was such a mess. There's so much in this game that this game is fun in spite of a lot of the major decisions they made about this game. So I'm really hoping Dying Light 2 is good. I have a feeling people will like it regardless, because if they like this game, it's probably going to be more of that. So at a minimum, it'll be as good as Dying Light 1, but I'm really hoping they elevate it by really tightening up the mechanics, because they clearly care about the community if they're going to update this game for 6 years. It's never major content updates. I think there was like 2 actual DLCs or something like that, and then the rest were just kind of small content drops, like weapons and clothing. But like, they care about the community, and they do that a lot.
They know what people like. You know, they had the Left 4 Dead 2 items. I think they had Team Fortress 2 stuff. They had several other games. They have Chivalry. They have a shield and swords and stuff. You can get a Zweihander. Like, that's pretty cool if you play this game and you're like, hey, I like Chivalry. Hey, look, I can get a Zweihander. That's cool.
I would like to see more 4-player co-op open world games. I think 2 players for an open world game is fine, but 4 people in an open world game I think is the perfect amount. I really enjoyed Ghost Recon Wildlands because of the 4-player co-op, and that is a bit more better paced, even though it's a kind of crappy Ubisoft game. But like, I still enjoyed it. I like the gunplay in that game, but that's unrelated to Dying Light at this point. In terms of like where I would rate this among other zombie games, I think I would rate it underneath Left 4 Dead 2, because Left 4 Dead 2 is a very short experience, and so it's very tight, and it's got that replayability factor to it where I can't, like, level director or whatever it's called will change up what enemies are in the mission depending on how you're doing. And the workshop support to add a bunch of goofy mods are hilarious. I would put it above, well, I'd put it way above Dead Island. I hated Dead Island, but I would put it on par with Dead Rising.
I was about to say that. Yeah, definitely.
Dead Rising has some good fun mechanics.
They both found their niche.
Yeah, they have a lot of really goofy weapons and things that you can do, and the game itself doesn't take itself very seriously, and the main character is hilarious. It also, I know a lot of people don't like the mechanic of Dead Rising having a timer, but I think it's so cool. I find it very interesting. I don't know if I personally love it, but I like it as an idea. I think their implementation was a little weird. It
kills me when I'm playing it. I hate it so much, but it's so cool that you have that to push you, and you're sitting there like, no, gotta go.
Because the inherent idea of having an overall timer to be able to get to missions and then having free time between the missions is interesting, especially for keeping agency, because it's a pretty open-ended game, so you want people to have that sense of like, I need to get to the next mission, so they literally slap a timer on it. So for some people who want to take it at their own pace, that doesn't quite work, but I think it works to keep people at the game's pace. So maybe some kind of compromise would have worked better. Dying Light for sure could have worked with some kind of time limit when they're introducing these things, like, oh, you've got 48 hours before we fire on the city, and then like 3 days pass, which was hilarious. And then Antizin is completely arbitrary. We can go, a week and a half without Antizin, but then all of a sudden we start suffering adverse effects, and then we start suffering adverse effects like less than 2 hours after getting another dose. It's like, this is purely just for the plot and not an actual like timer. Because that was another interesting mechanic that they did in Dead Rising 2. I don't know if Dead Rising 2 had, well, it's still the same kind of timer, but in Dead Rising 2 it's your daughter needs Zombrex, which is their version of the anti-zombie drug. So you need to bring the zombie medicine back to her all the time, which was also an interesting use of that mechanic. It would have fit with the survival genre stuff they'd already thrown in to have a timer before you turn into a zombie, so you do that, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, it works for the experience.
I would recommend Dying Light. I think it goes on sale quite a bit.
It does, yeah.
Pretty sure it's pretty cheap right now anyways, just to experience it, because it's one of those games that's got a really niche thing that it filled. So it's like, it may not be the best game ever, but it's the only game like this. There are no other parkour zombie games. So just playing it to have that experience is good. There are honestly not that many parkour games. I do hope with Dying Light 2, they stray a little bit more away from the realistic character animations and go for faster, because strafing while you're climbing is just like, all right, I'm moving my hands. 1, 2, move. 1, 2, move. 1, 2, move.
Yep.
Where if it were actually fun, your middle body would be moving constantly and your hands just go with you. It would look a little goofy because you'd be doing it really fast, but it would be faster. And then there's things like when you vault up something, you could just do it at an inhuman speed, but it would feel smoother because they would be able to continue to do that. And it wouldn't feel like I'm constantly slowing down every time I have to climb up something. I would say the climbing is pretty much on par with like older Assassin's Creed titles. I haven't played the newer ones, so I don't know if they've improved on the parkour climbing for that.
That's still the same kind of like dump, 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 like 1, 2, 3, 4 of moving.
But it's definitely better than just, oh, we're an FPS and we've got a mechanic so you can like lift yourself up onto a wall. It's like, nah, I don't care, Battlefield 1. Dying Light 2 is promising, but I'm skeptical. But I don't think this game was terrible. I just think it was above average, but still kind of bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, co-op definitely, like, it's not an excuse. You still need to have a good game, but co-op can make a mediocre game hilarious.
Yes, definitely. I need some kind of wrap up, so I guess I'll do the same rant, like mini rant that I did with Doom. The real thoughts are not a review of the game. It's our opinions and it's our personal experience based on what we played. It's not going to be your own opinion. You should form your own opinion. I am not trying to convince you otherwise. I'm not trying to convince you that you should also think that this game is a little bit bad because I think this game is a little bit bad. If you think this game is great, continue to think that. You can understand where I'm coming from, and you can disagree with me, and that's totally fine, because I want people to be able to form their own opinions. I don't want to end up as one of those people that's like, oh, this YouTuber didn't like this game, so I don't like this game. I've never played it, but, I'm just going to follow his opinion. Don't be like that. I want everybody to form their own opinions, because I have really niche opinions about games.
I'll just fight anyone in the comments who disagrees with me.
Listen here, you little shit. Special thanks to my patrons Zaniri, Game Wilder, Lord Dingro, KBG, Thonking Quacker, Laura, Tucker is Lit, Robert Yineman, Omega Murican, Jason Snelders, Casper G, and Tyler. If you want to support the channel, you'll get your own custom avatar that'll go at the end of the videos you helped support that month.